AOC, who we know is going to run, let me take that back. I'm very confident that she's going to run for president. So she had a lot to say regarding what is currently going on. But there are multiple layers to this. So here we go.
That's absolutely right. I think one of the connections and relationships that is under discussed, particularly in the security space, is the fact that I believe we're seeing an economy around the world, including in the United States, that extreme levels of income inequality lead to social instability and drives, in a sense, in authoritarianism, right-wing populism, and very dangerous domestic internal politics. And that is a direct outcome of not just income inequality, but the failure of democracies over decades to deliver. The failure to deliver higher wages, the failure to rein in corporations. The point was just made about antitrust. In the United States, antitrust is such a foundational bedrock value, not just because the ascent of monopolies create the abuse of power in corporations and market power, but there is a level of market concentration and corporate consolidation where a massive company can get so big that its consolidated power can rival that of nation states.
So what are you prepared to do about it? What are you going to do about it? Are you going to continue to support candidates that are supported by AIPAC? Because that's something you've been making a habit out of lately. I also want to know why they get invited to these conferences and what exactly they're hoping to accomplish. That's something that I think often gets overlooked because, again, they're looking for somebody who can step in and provide some type of an avenue that is outside of the traditional two-party duopoly lane. But what do you think you're getting with Alex? That's my question to everybody who was so excited about everything that she had to say at this particular event, although I wasn't particularly impressed, to be honest. But you're going to get somebody. Somebody is going to do it. Somebody is going to run in the left lane in the Democratic Party. And what that looks like, I'm not 100% certain yet, but odds are it's going to be AOC or Ro Khanna or possibly both, because somebody's going to attempt to do it. I'm here to tell you that if you're getting excited about that prospect, don't. Do not get excited about it. Because when the rubber meets the road, Alex is going to capitulate to the system, not to the people. Now, she's speaking very carefully, very concisely, and not trying to trip over her words. Okay. Again, very often becoming president of the United States is pageantry. How well do you perform in front of the camera? That's often what a lot of people are looking for. It's the old joke from Back to the Future. No wonder your president has to be an actor. He's got to look good on television. Well, this is sort of the same thing. You're looking for AOC and how well can she perform? Well, in this case, she's talking about clear-cut problems that do exist in the United States. She's not wrong about that. We have descended into oligarchy, that is obvious. We are bordering on fascism. Corporate special interests have completely engulfed our system. There is no coming back from this system, so you cannot salvage it. Whatever which way you want to look at this and think that it can be saved, that's a waste of time. So don't waste it. We have to be much more diligent about how we're going to change. And Alex's decisions are ones that are not going to be made from decisive leadership. That's not who she is. Now, I've said she's a fantastic influencer. And if that's the role that she wants to play, then so be it. You can do that. But to be the leader of the free world, some people truly get in over their head in a very big way. Not only is she out of her league, but so are the people who think that she's capable of running this country. She can't run her own congressional district. She's one of the 5 to 10 worst representatives on the Hill when it comes to getting, forget legislation, amendments, anything done. There are these arguments of, well, who gets the most bills passed? Yeah, we know most bills suck, but that's what amendments are for. That's why Bernie Sanders, for all of his flaws, was always regarded as the amendment king. He could never get through the type of bills that this country desperately needed, but he would always make sure the must-pass bills had amendments attached to them that benefited working people. What in the flying F has Alex ever done as far as that's concerned? And now she's going to jump ahead of the line and become president? Okay. Well, like I said, Performance art works well, but that doesn't mean that that is the answer that we need.
In democracies, we have elected leaders. And in massive corporations that then begin to consume the public sector, gobble up the spending, they start to call the shots. And we're starting to see this with some of the billionaire class throwing their weight around in domestic politics and in global politics as well. So it is of utmost urgent priority that we get our economic houses in order and deliver material gains for the working class, or else we will fall to a more isolated world governed by authoritarians that also do not deliver to working people.
So we already are living in a world where we are becoming more isolationist. But you're also talking about a world where you want to be a part of what? The WEF, the New World Order. You have to be more specific about that, because there's a reason why people are embracing libertarian isolationism in the States. Perhaps because the economic interests do not benefit working people. They benefit, in fact, not even the middle class. They benefit the upper class, mostly, overwhelmingly, the ruling class. And if you are not going to get radical with your language, and I mean really radical, like Bernie Sanders 2015, Howard Dean 2003, radical language when it comes to the economic plight of this moment. Heck, even Ron Paul of 2008. If you're not going to talk like that, get the hell out of here. Just get out. You're wasting time. You're wasting money. But remember, what is the one thing that the Democratic establishment cares about more than anything else? Making sure that the consultant class gets paid. And if Alex runs, the consultant class will get paid by those that support her and those that will come after her. She will be a rock star. She will generate a lot of interest. She'll be a hit for all the podcasts. Believe me, if there's anybody who's hoping that she runs, it's people in left liberal politics and conservative politics that do YouTube shows, because she will be a soundbite for them to use over and over and over again for the next year, year and a half. And they'll love it. Well, I'm not saying they're going to do it today, but I am saying that this is going to become a problem. And as David Hunter points out, Zoran is backing Kathy Hochul for governor. She allowed the DHS to buy a 1,500-bed concentration camp in upstate New York. Zoran said nothing. Zoran is mayor because the oligarchy stopped praising politicians. One thing you have to remember about somebody like Zoran is that he's going to do what he feels he has to do in order to get things done in New York City. And that's going to probably be to the sacrifice and detriment to many people throughout the state of New York if he's backing Kathy Hochul, who I do think is very vulnerable to a challenge, which is probably why Zoran is backing her, with the condition that he's going to get things done in New York City. But that's the dirty side of politics. You make illicit deals that you otherwise don't want to make. And that's the problem. But if you will see this next clip with AOC, I just want to hammer this home, because there's two clips here that I'm going to show you guys. The first one is of AOC, and the second one is of the person who I do believe is going to be Gavin Newsom's vice presidential pick, who also spoke at this conference. So AOC also had an opportunity to comment on what's going on in Taiwan and whether or not Taiwan is a part of China or whether we should do anything about it. Really stands to reason why this is a pretty big deal. Well, what ends up happening in many instances when you put people in a position to have to make the type of comments in which you cannot fence it? You have to make a decision. And the one thing that ends up happening in many instances when people are put in a position where they have to make a choice, those that truly succeed in politics, and you see this much more in the Republican Party than you do in the Democratic Party, you cannot be thinking about what the media is going to say, what the consultant class is going to say. You either have conviction and belief in what you're standing for and what you're fighting for, or you don't have anything. That more than anything else is the problem here. The easy answer doesn't work. And the one thing I have accepted when I started doing what I was doing, when I got involved with Jen, when I started doing this podcast with Jen and when I ultimately started putting out public posts, social media, sharing my comments, one thing I learned is that I don't care what people think of me. I don't care if people hate me. I really don't. I have accepted that reality, which a lot of people either can't handle. And I think that that in itself is a very big part of the problem. Here's why AOC is not ready for prime time.
And should the U.S. actually commit U.S. troops to defend Taiwan if China were to move?
I think that this is such a, I think that this is a,
I haven't even finished with it yet, and that's almost 15 to 20 seconds worth of I don't know. I can't get the words out. You know why she can't get the words out? Because she didn't rehearse this part of the play. And when you don't rehearse this part of the play and you have to act off the cuff, you have to think for yourself. And she's not capable of thinking for herself, because if she did, she'd be out of her element, which she clearly is. Not only that, but if you really think that she's capable of running for president and she's not going to be coached every pillar to post, every which way, this is a prime example of that. She can't think for herself. What is she doing here? Let's not go there. Let's not go there. Don't denigrate people that are working people. I don't like that shit. She's a bartender. Fuck that shit. I was a bartender for years. It's not cool. Don't go there. But when it comes to her being a federal legislator, she's a joke. And this person's going to be president of the United States. And I'm not here to basically say, oh, this system can be salvaged, we should have this. No. People need to get into the mindset of what is and what isn't. What is realistic versus what is this fantasy that people are living amongst? This wasn't even a hard push. She was simply asked, what do you make of what's going on in Taiwan? She can't answer that question immediately. Here, if I'm running for president of the United States, let's do a little role play right now. Peter Hager, running for president of the United States. What do you think about what's going on in Taiwan right now? I think the United States should stay out of the business of what's going on in Southeast Asia. Unless China is actively mass murdering people within that country, we have no business getting involved. And if they were, it is not incumbent upon the United States to arbitrarily go in solely to take apart China's control over Taiwan or the region in general. But one thing we've learned about China, their interests are almost universally economic. They do not want the United States to have anything to do with Taiwan. And you know what? I don't blame them. That's their part of the world. If China came over here and started messing with Mexico and Canada, yeah, maybe then we might have something to say about it. But no, we care about Taiwan because we care about economic arbitrage, controlling markets, money, resources. And if we can't control China, who can we control? So that's my off-the-cuff answer, just thought of it on the spot. Can Alex talk like that? Probably not. And even if she could, she won't, because she's controlled opposition. Hate to say it, but reality is what it is.
this is, of course, a very longstanding policy of the United States. And I think what we are hoping for is that we want to make sure that we never get to that point. And we want to make sure that we are moving in all of our economic research and our global positions to avoid any confrontation and for that question to even arise.
The chief executive's primary role is not domestic policy. It's foreign policy. the person who I think in this moment, if we are still stuck in this two-party duopoly, the person who is most qualified in this moment to be the chief executive who oversees the armed forces, it's Thomas Massie. That's who I would vote for. Because at least I know I would be dealing with somebody who isn't controlled by corporate special interests, but we live in reality, and we know that the odds of, it's one thing if he keeps his congressional seat, which I believe he will. It's another thing entirely for somebody like him to be in charge of the free world, and we all know that they'll kill him before that could ever happen. So, that being said, having lofty goals about theories of grandeur in her own mind, Alex probably will run for president. And with answers like this, she will fall flat on her face, and deservedly so. But that's not the only person that you need to be looking out for, because there was another person who had commentary at this event. And boy, was that commentary really, really cringeworthy. And the reason being is because, as Jen likes to say, it's in the eyes, Chico.
Ukraine, what does victory look like?
Ambassador? No, please. I'd love to hear your answer.
Yeah, it is. The two that I am on the panel with are much more steeped in foreign policy than a governor is. But
and you want to run for president of the United States? You come to a forum in Munich, Germany, specifically about foreign policy, and you can't answer this question. And this was a question regarding both Ukraine and I believe Taiwan. She can't answer this. And this woman is going to run for president. You could bet your bottom dollar she is. And she's the next Kamala. She is Gavin Newsom's Kamala. Why? She's a two-term governor in a swing state that Democrats must win if they're going to win the White House. So she will run. And unless something substantial happens, Gavin Newsom will be the nominee and Gretchen Whitmer will be his VP. Hear me now, quote me later. You can, again, these podcasts, they get archived. So it's not like you can't trace it back and see that I said this. But I'm telling you now, that's what's coming. I want to be the leader of the free world, and I'm going to defer to somebody else on this panel that I can't answer a basic question about foreign policy regarding endless war. Yes, if only we elect a Democrat instead of somebody like Trump, that'll make it better. This is Gretchen Whitmer, governor of Michigan. Okay. Yeah, Jen's getting on my ass. So yes, Gretchen Whitmer from Michigan. She is the governor. I thought I alluded to it, and I apologize.
I do think that Ukraine's independence, keeping their land mass, and having the support of all the allies, I think is the goal from my vantage point. Go ahead, Ambassador. Do a better job.
The water in Flint, Michigan is still contaminated, despite what other people would have you believe. But it's not just Flint. It's also what's going on in Kalamazoo. The eyes, Chico. It's in the eyes. At some point, you have to come to terms with the fact that the two-party system is broken. It cannot be resuscitated. And if you think that if you just voted harder or voted bluer, that somehow, some way, that's going to solve the problem. It isn't. We have to get past this point completely. And at that moment, when everybody realizes, then the revolution will commence.